Patisserie Valerie is a chain of bakeries in the UK that began in 1926. By 2006, it was still a very small business with only 6 stores. However, fast forward 12 years and that number grew to 206 stores. It was a resounding success and had reached peak market valuation of £450 million just 4 years after going public. However, this was short-lived, and in 2018, the stock of Patisserie Holdings was suspended as an ongoing investigation discovered a hole in their books. At first, this was thought to be £20 million, and later that was corrected to be £40 million until the final report revealed that there was £94 million missing from the balance sheet. That $94 million came from several places. First, cash was overstated by £54 million. Next, debts were understated while receivables were overstated by a total of $17 million. And finally, assets were overvalued by $23 million. The fraud is believed to have been highly sophisticated, but mainly resulted from cost overruns that dried up the bank account. In fact, there was a £10 million overdraft of the company account by the time the fraud was discovered. It's believed there was a ring of collusion involving top and mid-level management. Overall, there were several inherent risks that the auditors should have been attentive to. First, the business was growing so rapidly, it fundamentally changed the type of business it was. Accounting for a private 6-store company is akin to bookkeeping. Within just 8 years, this small business went public and ultimately grew by 3,000%. The increase in accounting complexity, the change from private to public, and increased volume of transactions all created the perfect storm for something to be misstated. Specifically, management said they didn't even fully understand their inventory costs. The increase in overhead and changes that occurred in their supply chain made it difficult to keep track of and manage inventory and cost of goods sold. This may account for why their debts and assets were so misstated. Finally, the industry itself faced pressures due to the change in consumer tastes. Over the past decade, vegan, gluten-free, and low-sugar diets have all become increasingly popular. A chain that's based around selling cakes and pastries that include ingredients forbidden by all 3 diets certainly faced pressure to continue to do well in increasingly hostile conditions. This should have raised concerns that some sales could have been fabricated, as growth was very stable despite these factors. Nonetheless, the auditors seemed unwilling to question anything about Patisserie Valerie until it was too late. Several simple audit procedures could have caught many of these issues. Auditors should have been confirming bank account balances with the bank and examining debt agreements to ensure the proper amount had been recorded. Sending out receivable confirmations could have helped catch that receivables were overvalued. Further, performing an inventory count and vouching the order packets could have caught inventory and cost of goods sold inconsistencies. Finally, a set of sales should have been traced to ensure that all sales were real. Some of these procedures are so simple, yet would have been so effective in catching this fraud, so you have to wonder what the auditors were thinking. However, auditor incompetence is not the only factor that created these perfect conditions for fraud. We can speculate that a lack of internal controls gave rise to the conditions that allowed this fraud to flourish. It appears as if separation of duties was a poorly enacted control that could have helped mitigate a number of false entries. Further, a lack of a clear ordering system that had a list of approved suppliers and packet systems for orders allowed costs to be very difficult to keep track of. Finally, a lack of surveillance allowed employees to collude in order to cook the books. By the making of this video, 5 managers from Patisserie Valerie had been arrested and are awaiting trial. The auditors, Grant Thornton, have faced criticism that their audits are of poor quality. In fact, their audit of Patisserie Valerie failed to meet audit standards, and they currently face potential fines due to their negligence. Patisserie Valerie is still operating today, but under new management. For £13 million, a mere 3% of what it was once worth, Causeway Capital Partners bought the chain after there were over 100 store closures and 1,500 employees were laid off.